Should we get started? There are empty seats. I welcome you to sit at the table too. There are. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Sachi. No. We can do better than that, huh? Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for entertaining me. My name is Saji Pellis. I direct Search for Common Ground student and youth programs, and I want to welcome you to Search. And I also want to welcome our colleagues and friends online who are joining us from far and near. And I would like for you to, on the chat box on here, if you can actually introduce yourself so it's on the record as well, just your name, agency, and country or location. We would really love to see that populate on the screen here as well. As we get started, I'd like to first introduce Search for Common Ground's Executive Vice President, Sandra Malone, to formally welcome us here.
Formally, all right. Yeah. I am hereby formally welcoming you all here to this Washington Network for Children in Armed Conflict, which, as you know, has been really one of the places where we've been able time after time after time to bring a stellar group of people interested in and experts in topics such as child soldiers and how they most definitely should not be used in armed conflict. So we have a very special session today about child soldiers. And I think the best would be for us to go around the virtual and real table and simply introduce ourselves. Make sure for those of you who are here that you sign the sign-in sheet so that we continue to grow our Washington-based constituency. And that's all I would like to say on behalf of Search for Common Ground. You know that the network is a partnership with our friend and colleague, John Williamson, who can be the next person to introduce himself.
I am John Williamson with the USAID's Displaced Children and Orphans Fund. We've been in partnership with Search for Common Ground, convening on children and armed conflict.
Why don't we do something in the trade?
My name is Stone Conroy. I recently returned from a year in Nigeria working for Mercy Corps on peace building programs there, and now transitioning to the State Department.
I'm Adriana. I'm an intern here in Search for the Children Youth Team.
Hi, Mira. I'm with Search.
Hi, I'm Irina.
We'll go around and then.
Okay, I'm Irina. I'm currently studying at SAIS Johns Hopkins, specializing in conflict management.
I am Jan Kerblas. I'm a humanitarian consultant. Just came back from 1 year in the Philippines.
Hello, I'm Leah Rapley. I'm a first-year graduate student at George Washington University, getting my master's in international education.
I'm Elena. I'm here with Youth and Sexual Violence and Conflict. We're a UN-based initiative under the SRSG Sexual Violence and Conflict.
My name is Eduardo. I am the speaker.
You're the one person we know.
My name is Masi. I'm the Communications Associate here at Search.
Hi, I'm Penelope Nelson. I'm with the Human Rights Violators and War Crimes Unit at Homeland Security.
I'm Molly French, and I work with
Hi, I'm Lillian Alexander. I'm from DAI.
And my name is Lori Edwards. I'm also from DAI.
I'm Victoria. I'm a second-year master's student at Georgetown and just got back from Liberia.
Hi, my name is Sandrine Murphy, and I'm interning with ILT.
Hi, my name is Alexander DeWolf, and I'm interning with Big Shadow Kids Function.
Hi, I'm Marcel Amfi. I recently graduated from SAT Grad Institute.
Hi, I'm Nagwa. I'm joining this study for Children Youth.
Morning, my name is Michael Schiffler. I'm with Search for Common Ground. I'm the regional director for Asian programs.
I believe you're one of the fathers of this network, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome, Papa.
We should say grandfather.
Grandfathers.
And I'm Pamela Pratt from the Global Fund for Children.
I'm Ahmed Diallo from the Global Fund for Children.
And I'm Caitlin Kelly. I'm the Program Associate for the Children and Youth Division here at Search.
And before I hand it over to John Williams, I also want to thank and acknowledge UNICEF, who has helped in making this happen, and this UN Secretary General Special Representative of Children and Conflict, also for the campaign itself. So with that in mind, I'd like to hand over to John to do a quick introduction and then.
Okay. About the Washington Network, for those that aren't familiar with us, it is a forum. It's a place where people from different segments of the community in Washington and abroad can come together. When Michael and I initiated this, it was with the recognition that you have NGOs concerned with children in armed conflict. You've got government concerned with children in armed conflict. You've got people in academia that are concerned, and consultants, others in think tanks, and yet there was no real forum, no place for people to come together and have technical exchanges on issues related to children in armed conflict. So that's why we did that, and we are celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. But more to the point, today's session focuses on the campaign Children Not Soldiers 2016. It's something very significant. Its focus is on children who are in the military or security services of governments. It's not attempting directly to address those who are with non-state actors. But it really, I think, poses the potential for the first time removing from those government military and security services children. And we're delighted to have with us today Eduardo Garcia Mulan, who I can say, I think without fear of contradiction, one of the most highly respected people working in the area of child protection around the world.
You're here.
So I think everybody that's here online or in person has seen the announcement, so I won't go through his bio in detail. But until recently, he was, and for quite a number of years, had worked with the International Rescue Committee. He is now with UNICEF, specifically working on this campaign. And with that, I just want to turn things over to Bob.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone online. I followed sometimes this online, and it's difficult because sometimes we forget. So I hope I'm not going to forget you, and where you are going to feel also part of the event. But first of all, thanks for the warm welcoming, Saji and Sandra, John. I do feel home, I have to say, because I've been here a few times. The last time was a few years ago, but it's great, and it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure to be back in this forum, and particularly talk about the campaign for Children Not Soldiers. And it's always very interesting to be able to share ideas, to have an open dialogue, and I hope this is going to be that, an open dialogue, more than me giving a long speech on what the campaign is. I think it's much more interesting to hear your reactions, to hear your impressions, and also I'm going to be very cheeky, and I'm going to try to engage you to hear also how you would contribute, your organizations could contribute, and your ideas on how to make this campaign a success. Because as John mentioned, this is actually could be a first opportunity, or first time in history in which we could have professional armies worldwide, child-free professional armies, where they are not recruitment for use of children, and if there are cases, they can be addressed and appropriately, which is the idea of the campaign. Can you see my own presentation there? Or
yes.
How does it? Okay. Then I have it as a guide.
Do you want to share it with? The presentation that we're going to have here is also online on the website itself, and the information document, background document, is also online for those of you who want to take a look at it.
Can they actually see it through this or not?
Yes.
That's it. Okay, that's great. I used, as you see, the logo of the campaign because probably you're going to become hopefully more and more familiar with that logo, and hopefully that's going to be associated with success and in this movement for 2016. Oh, I can do it. Oh, so great. You don't have to stay there. So the first thing is I wanted to talk a little bit. Where is this coming from? Where is this campaign coming from? And I am a little bit tempted to go to the very beginning of history, not to the history of human beings, but to the history of the agenda of children and armed conflict. And I'm going to go to that. Then we are going to look at the countries that have been affected by the campaign directly. So they are the countries that are listed in the report of the Secretary General as where the security apparatus, either the more armed forces, but the police also, are recruiting or using children, right? The regular armies or regular police. We are going to talk a little bit about the progress. So why the campaign, what is the impact of the campaign, and which has been the successes and all the work that is still to be done. A little bit on what are the stakeholders, including a lot of people who are here around the table. I think we are all stakeholders, so sometimes we hear that word and it seems something theoretical that is far away in a cloud, and actually I think we all have something to contribute with. Then we are going to have a session on questions and answers, so please feel free to interrupt at any time, also online if you have any questions. Matthew, you're going to bring them up, and as I said, I want this to be more a dialogue, and anything that I said that you want to awakes your reaction, please feel free. I would be happy to engage and engage others on that. And then we are going to do a little exercise, right? And we are going to have little groups. We are going to separate, and we are going to look probably at 1 or 2 cases. I left it a little bit open. We were discussing before which countries we could discuss on, but maybe there is specific interest on the room. Sorry, and online you are the ones on the web. But then we can decide which ones you want to focus on, and we will be, we'll talk a little bit about the cases you want to talk about. But very briefly about the history and where the campaign is coming from. I'm not going to go to the beginning of times of the history of human beings, but I think it's important to remember, and I'm sure you hear that a lot here in this forum, or of all the steps that we are crossing and all the lines we are crossing to move the agenda of the children and armed conflict, and to improve the life and protect children that are victims, direct or indirect victims of armed conflict. So obviously it's a little bit our fantastic trigger to move things forward. And I remember when in 1999 I was in a conference with Carson Marcel in Mozambique on child soldiers, and it was the first African conference, I think, on children. And I didn't know how this was going to push me in this direction, but I don't think nobody knew where we were going towards when this started. What it was clear after the Grasser Marcel report, it was that we needed to do something, and that the situation was really dire, and it had to improve. So we didn't know how to, but we had to improve it. And I will say it has improved. And the fact that there is this campaign now is also a proof that things have improved. Because I would say 10 years ago, nobody would have even imagined something like that we could have really discussed the possibility of having regular child-free armies around the world. It's going to be tough, and the campaign is not something that is going to happen, and we cannot expect in 2016 that everything is going to be rosy and it's going to be a total success. We have to we are obviously aiming towards that, but it means there is a lot of work in the next 2 years and a half to get there. The campaign is part of the agenda to improve the lives of children in our conflict. It's not the issue. I think it's one of the issues, and I think we have to put that very much into context, right? The campaign is looking at those countries where the regular armies are using or recruiting children. But obviously, and you all know, that that's not the only problem of children in armed conflict, that there are a myriad of problems that children are facing every day, and that those regular armies are not the only ones who are using and recruiting children. In fact, if you look at the report of the Secretary General, the majority of children that are recruited or used by armed groups are basically not regular armed groups or not government armed forces, and that is clear. So we continue working very strongly, and I'm sure that all your organizations and many others who are online and others, we are continue working towards compliance with the optional protocol. So, and been engaging not only governments but also non-state actors to free children and to protect children. But the campaign specifically is looking at governments, and the reason why is because the governments seem to be more open, or at least at this stage in time, at this point in time, to engage with the UN and with the UN system to improve the lives of children, right? So the campaign was launched in March 2014, the 6th of March 2014, and it was launched together by the SRSG, the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict, Madam Leila Serrougi, and UNICEF, right? And so it is a combined effort. As I said, it's launched by these two entities. I work for UNICEF, and I love working for UNICEF, and I love working with my colleagues of the SRSG CAC office. Sorry for the acronym. So the Special Representative of the Secretary General from Children and Armed Conflict Office, that I'm sure that they are online. But if we alone, we try to push the campaign forward, we don't have many chances to succeed. The ones who are really have to be engaged, and they are engaging, are the governments, but also many other stakeholders. And particularly, and I said this in this forum because I think it's the right one to say, we really need a lot of support from NGOs who do the tremendous work on reintegration of those who have been recruited and have been released, that do a fantastic job in advocacy, in awareness raising, in training. Sandra was telling me before that General Dallaire was going to come to this forum also in a few weeks, right?
November 14th.
November 14th. And UNICEF also has a partnership with them, and they are doing also a very impressive work in training the military and security forces. And that is, for example, a very important component of the work to achieve the objectives of the campaign. So in March 2014, with also the support of the mission of Luxembourg, that is now chairing the Security Council and the working group, right? Also, so this was launched publicly, and now it's like, oh my God! So now we have to work. So, and this is something that is making us all sweat, because now we have even a deadline, which is like no pressure, right? You have to change the world in as it is in just a few months. Something that has never done before in probably 2,000 years, and now we wanted to do it in 2 years. So, can you help us? But I have to say, it's interesting what it has happened since. There are 8 countries that. Well, before I talk about the 8 countries, there was a very a fantastic political will also from countries that are not in the list, but also from the countries that were mentioned in the report, because the report of the Secretary General is shaming, right? I mean, when someone says you are recruiting and using children, that is not something that you put in your curriculum vitae to look for a job. Really, it's something that is damaging, and obviously, every government, and very naturally so, they want to protect their legitimacy, their integrity, and they all of them want to demonstrate that they are abiding by principles. But then when you are in a list and you are recruiting and using children, really that doesn't give you a good credit. So they are now saying, okay, so if they are mentioning that our names in this particular campaign, what we are saying is we embrace this, and we are going to try to do our best for the objectives of the campaign. We are going to need help, we are going to need guidance, but we are committed to this. And I have to say, all the other countries around the world, and there was an open debate, children and conflict, in September, the 8th of September this year. So basically 6 months after the launching of the campaign. And there were many governments around the world that were showing a lot of support for the campaign, at least theoretical support. We haven't seen much of a
money
commitment in that sense. Thank you, Sandra. I didn't want to say it, but at least there is, there is political interest and support. For the NGOs, from the NGOs' point of view, the same thing. A few days after the open debate on children and armed conflict, September 11, World Vision convened, called for a workshop in New York of NGOs, which was around how the NGOs could better engage or more engage with the campaign. How could they support the campaign? And there were many international NGOs. It was in New York. There were not national NGOs. That would have been a little complicated, but definitely I know that there's many national NGOs that are also interested that were present. It was IRC was there, Save the Children, Watch List, Human Rights Watch. I'm now afraid to mention this because I'm sure I'm going to forget someone who is online and is like, I was there. But what it was clear is that there was a lot of interest also to support. Okay, let's move with the 8 countries. Which are the 8 countries, without looking at your papers? Who do you think they are the 8 countries that are listed there in the security in the Secretary General's report? What's your guess?
DRC.
DRC. Come on to Sabe-san. Yeah.
Myanmar.
Yemen. Myanmar. Afghanistan.
South Sudan.
South Sudan. Sudan. Chad was listed, yeah? We are missing one.
The Republic of Central Africa.
Thank you very much. You were like machines. Wow. So everybody, Somalia. So everybody knows who the countries are. This is very interesting. I guess this is also shows something, which is the people know. So when you are mentioned and you are in this list, it's not something that is like black in the night. You guys know, and you said it one after the other. You didn't miss anyone, and you didn't even say one that was not there. Those were the 8 countries that were listed in March, and all of them, as you know, have serious problems, and all of them, even if they have embraced and they have said yes, we want the campaign to succeed. We really think this is very important. We want to have professional armies that don't use or recruit children. Even in these countries, to do that requires a lot of work, and it's not easy. Let's go to see what do you have to do there. So what it has been happening is the UN, as the family of the UN, I would say, has engages with the parties in the conflict through task forces in each country where there is conflict, right? And because these 8 governments had been mentioned as using or recruiting children, they are therefore parties in the conflict that engage with the UN to improve the situation of children in that particular conflict. A lot of people are taking notes and everything. Maybe this is something interesting. And that is in particular to the six violations. I'm sure you probably know about the 6 violations that I've been monitoring very closely since 2005 through the Security Council Resolution 1612, which established a mechanism to monitor these 6 violations and to report on those 6 violations directly to the Security Council. So the first violation that was mentioned in 2005, when this resolution and the system established was mentioned, was use and recruitment of children, right? Now there are 6: it's attacks on schools and hospitals and their personnel, killing and maiming, sexual violence against children, denial of access of humanitarian aid, and kidnapping. I think I said all of them. Yes. But looking at this specifically on recruitment and use of children, so the parties are invited, basically, they're engaged to sign an action plan. So an action plan is basically a commitment from the party that signed it with the UN to end that violation and to improve the lives of those children, right? So these 8 countries, when the campaign was started in March, what it basically is, it was also an invitation also to sign the action plans, or if the action plans were already signed, to also push for implementation of those action plans, right? The action plans are quite simple. They are actually not public documents, but we can, and I'm going to give you more or less what it's the content of them, because that's pretty obvious, and I'm sure that you can imagine. I mean, what the objective and what you want, basically the main indicator is that there's not going to be any more use and recruitment of children, that there's not going to be, the monitoring system is not going to have any reports on children that are being used or recruited. And if there are, because that can happen also, then there is a system immediately to address it correctly, right? And that's what we aim to. And yeah, that makes sense? Yeah? Okay, and then what it happens is those action plans, then every country looks how to implement those action plans, and in many countries what it has happened is that is translated into a working plan, and many times also a roadmap, which is more of a failure, so more on the details on how this is going to be implemented, right? And there are a series of things that have to be done, some components that have to be done. Of the 8 countries, when the campaign was launched in March, 6 had signed action plans. One of the big successes was one more signed the action plan in May, which is Yemen. And there is another one there's only one that doesn't have an action plan with the UN right now. It's should I ask for a guess?
Sudan.
That's Sudan. Yeah, it's Sudan. But Sudan also has said that they're committed to the objectives of the campaign. You're too good. You're too good. Like, are you from Sudan or no? No. You are involved in the. Yeah. But they also have said that they praise the campaign, and they are looking at the objective of the campaign, and they want to be delisted from the list of the report. And there is one country that did a remarkable work to be delisted, and actually has been already delisted of the 8, which is. I'm looking at you because you were there. Of the 8, one has been already delisted, which is one of the successes of the campaign. I would say it's not just we put people on a list of shame, but we try to help them to get out of that list, and that's really the objective. It's not shaming people; it's helping people or helping parties to get out from that list. So, I mean, not that like the main objective. The main objective obviously is protect those children, right? So one has been delisted. Chad.
DRC.
Oh, no, not yet. Chad, correct, yes, Chad has been delisted. I wanted to show, let's talk a little bit about the impact of the campaign. This isn't it nice, that graphic?
What does it mean?
I don't know, no, yes. So this graphic shows the progress of the campaign in each of the countries. So you have all the countries there listed alphabetically: Afghanistan, Chad, DRC, Myanmar. Oh,
They're not seeing it.
yeah, but we don't. Well, it doesn't matter because I know them.
Can we just hide that? It's
Yeah,
selected on.
Myanmar, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Yemen, right? And as you see, there are serious differences among them. So what we did is, the action plans are similar, or they address, obviously they are contextualized and they have specific language and regulation and things, well, regulation, that's not the right word, but they are contextualized and done per country with each government. So there are specificities depending on the country, but there are some general issues that are in all of them. It's pretty standard. And so we have standardized the areas or the components of those action plans, and this is, you see there in green are those components that have been successfully achieved in the action plan. In yellow, you see that there are a lot of things in progress, things that the governments are engaging and they are working on. And those squares on red is things that basically haven't started or or so little that we can really consider that it's in progress. So if you see, interestingly enough, the countries on the top are the ones who are doing better. Chad basically has been delisted. You see there is nothing. There is still a little, obviously there is work and there's going to be work in these countries. They are listed or not listed, like we are also a lot of work in other countries that are not part of the campaign, and they have conflict and children are affected by those conflicts, right? Like you said you came from the Philippines, right? Yeah, and the MILF has also signed an action plan.
Would be for reintegration.
Yes, yeah, because they were listed for use and recruitment of children. So there's a lot of work there also to do that. But the interesting thing is that there are things that since the start of the campaign have moved from the left side, if I can say, of those graphics from the right side to the left side of those graphics. So there are things that have been improving, and I think there was a list of the successes. Yeah, on the back side. So there you have a whole list of specific things that have happened since the campaign, and probably some of the. Let me tell you some of them because some of them are really. I think there is a couple of them that are not even there. This week, it's going to happen something very interesting in South Sudan. South Sudan, when South Sudan signed the action plan with the UN, it was a lot of enthusiasm. As you know, it was a new country, and they wanted really to have international legitimacy, and they were really very engaged in human rights issues, and it was a remarkable progress how open they were. It was no any reluctance of, we haven't, yeah, let's talk about it, let's put it on the table, how can we improve things? And it seemed that it was going very, very well, and that Sudan was going to be one of the countries that was going to be delisted soon. But as you know, December 2013, the things didn't go very well there, and right now we have the recruitment and use of children, yes, skyrocketed, and that was not the only thing, right? There was mainly killing. There has been I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced at this point. Many of them in UNICEF compounds. So it has been it has been going a downward spiral. But the campaign was launched in March, and the government basically has also been engaged, saying, well, yes, things are going bad, but in this particular issue, we really want to do well. We want to do well. So they recommitted they sign a recommitment. And I know many of you, probably if you have been working in humanitarian aid for some years, some people become a little bit skeptical of signatures and papers. But they did, and they have approached the UN in the country, UNICEF in particular, and they are going to launch the campaign, the Children Not Soldiers campaign, nationally. So next Wednesday, the 29th of October, is going to be a national launch of the campaign in Juba. And the following couple of days, there's going to be a workshop with NGOs to organize the plan on how we are going to reintegrate those children, how we are going to help on the implementation of this action plan, how we are going to help the government on this, because it's only going to benefit who we want to benefit, which is the children, right? So that is pretty remarkable in a country which is in the middle of the conflict, and there is really a lot of suffering and a lot of problems in South Sudan. But I say that because I'm very proud that the campaign really is having this impact, and we have to grab that momentum. And it can be fantastic, and it can be if we find the resources and we have the social, not only financial, but also social mobilization. This can be a big success. Someone was asking me how many child soldiers are in the world, and it's a very difficult thing to say. We have also partnership with Child Soldiers International, and they are talking about the tens of thousands, but there's nothing very precise. But there are some figures that are quite precise. For example, one of the generals in South Sudan said it's around 1,000. They have around 1,000 soldiers. Obviously, this is not accurate, and I'm sure they don't have lists, but they have an idea that is definitely many. We knew that there were many, and we know also that the opposition have many. But if this moves forward, that means that we will have to be ready to reunify kids, to reintegrate in their communities, and the ones who are experts also in reintegration of child soldiers. You know that many of them cannot go directly. They need probably transit centers to transition from the military to the civilian life, etc., etc. So that's pretty good news, despite everything. And you see this, Sudan is not a lot of green there. There are things that are green. Sudan, to mention another one completely different, hasn't signed an action plan, but they are engaged with the UN. And at the open debate in September, they said that they thought that the campaign was important, that it was something essential, and they actually mentioned also on the floor of the Security Council the engagement with UNICEF and the work with UNICEF. So even if the action plan hasn't been signed, we can work, and there's always room for improvement and to work with authorities and to help them move forward. Yemen, as you probably know, since a few weeks ago, basically, the government were very strong changes, and there has been a lot of violence in Sana'a. They are in a moment right now where security and the political situation is pretty dire, and we don't know how the things are going to move forward. The things are a little bit stagnant there, and we will have to see in the coming months how things progress. They signed the action plan in May. They show commitment. There have been several interventions of Yemeni authorities saying they want this to succeed. But the reality is that right now it's a pretty difficult situation there. Somalia has engaged, I think it's in 2012, very clearly. Obviously, access is a big issue there, but it's a country that really wants to engage and be delisted, and that's their objective. Myanmar, as you know, there are political changes in Myanmar in the last years that have given a lot of hope. And when I say that, I say a lot of hope to children and to the situation that children are suffering in Myanmar. And I want to mention that in September, the 26th of September, Myanmar signed something that's called the document for implementation of the action plan. And the same day or the previous day, they released 109 children. As you know, not only, and that's not symbolic. It's a very important step. They are really looking at doing a screening in their troops. They have also, the army is huge in Myanmar. I think it's something like 400,000. Maybe Search for Common Ground knows better the numbers of the like 400,000.
I don't know the number off the top. It's a massive army, one of the largest in Asia.
One of the largest in Asia.
Yeah. When we see,
And there are many kids in there.
yes. So Chad was in a smaller army, so screening was more feasible. But Myanmar is, it's also remarkable that they are doing the screening, and it's extremely difficult, and they have a complicated recruitment system that they are completely changing also and trying to improve, so there are no children coming into there. So the fact that they released these children, and I think it was in August, they also released other children that were found. So they really are moving towards that, and they are very, and I can tell you, the authorities are very adamant. They want to be delisted. They want to, and they are also asking for help. Like every government, it's like, okay, we want to not to be in that list. What do we have to do not to be in that list? So we said you have to sign an action plan. Let's go step by step. And they really they are pushing for soon, to be delisted soon. They have been mentioning different dates, but it's if they do the work that they have engaged with, it may happen that it's one of the countries. I mean, all of us, we want all of them to be delisted. But clearly there are different steps and different stages of the listing, and definitely that's one of the ones that could happen soon. And definitely that's the will of the Myanmar authorities. DRC, and you were saying that maybe it was DRC who has been delisted, but no, they hadn't been delisted. They are there. Though if you see in the graphic, they really have done a lot of work to be delisted. There are still problems, and there are serious problems still, but one of the things is that DRC wants also to deploy troops elsewhere, and there were troops deployed in Central African Republic, and obviously they do the screening of those troops to be sure that there are not children there. So they are very aware and cognizant of the importance of not having children in their troops. Chad is it's a success story in a way. I mean, at least what we can say is they did all possible efforts. There were very particular political circumstances, etc., in the country that allowed this to happen, to be delisted. As I said, we are still working with our team there, because there are some legal reforms that are doing in particular for the prohibition and accountability of possible violators of this rule, and also birth registration to basically appropriate age assessment for kids and when they in the recruitment processes. But it has been delisted. After being delisted, there will be at least a 1-year monitoring process. And then, anyways, if something happened after a year, obviously it would be terrible to think that the country can go back to the list, but obviously it could happen. And then the last one is Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, I leave that one for the last. I don't think there are that many NGOs engaged in children non-conflict issues or reintegration issues. Maybe you also can help us a little bit on that. I think there has been other priorities in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has done enormous work also for the delisting, but it's not the army; it's actually the police that is listed as producing and recruiting children, and particularly local police. So they are working with the authorities to be delisted. And I have to say, it's also one of the countries that really is pushing for being delisted. I'm going to Afghanistan in a month to work on one of these bottlenecks, which is age assessment. So one of the things is, in many of these countries, children want to be recruited because there are no other means of living, right? And that's also, I think, the responsibility of the authorities, but also the international community, NGOs, and the like, to see, well, It's not only to say to block recruitment of these children, it's also to give alternatives for these kids. Because otherwise we can congratulate each other saying, oh, we don't have countries listed, and then children are really living and suffering still and being victims of conflict. And that's an important point that we don't want to lose the perspective of that. We have some objectives on the campaign, but also we work also in partnerships, and UNICEF works very closely with NGOs to ensure that children are not only reintegrated, but they are having a decent life in their communities and with their families So I think it's I don't know what I will do if I am a recruiter, a police recruiter, and I am there in front of a child who says, but please, I am already 16, please recruit me, because otherwise my family is going to suffer tremendously. So I'm sure that it's a really difficult stuff also for them, for recruiters, and I understand that, to say, no, we are a professional army, you don't have a place here. You belong to other place. But you need that other place, you need that school or that other alternative. How are we doing? I was hoping that you were going to
question right there.
Yeah, fantastic.
No, go ahead, you want this. So you talked about you talked about the different stages that countries have to take in order to be delisted. And I know the action plan might look differently in different countries, but generally, what are some steps that they have to take in order to achieve?
It looks like we have been preparing this before, right? Is the next slide. Okay. Let me go to, but you want to?
Yeah, I was going to ask whether whether there's a process for children who are soldiers who are recruited as children, but now they're adults as you're going into search them. So is there a kind of screening mechanism? I mean, they're obviously psychologically affected as well, and there's a range of issues. So do you have is there a process or some kind of mechanism to screen for those who are recruited as children, but are now adults and might need help?
That's a great question. It's a complicated question because I don't want to answer it very lightly because it requires it could be another topic for a whole. No, but it's great that you raised it. There are some very adult people who have been recruited as children, and their lives is right now the army or the police, and those people don't want to leave. So as adults, also I think there is kind of obviously you have to give them options, right? I don't think it will be very wise from us saying someone who is 50-something or 60-something and is a general in one of the armies listed here. And I say that because actually we know a case that said, well, I was recruited as a child and I was voluntary, and so there are cases and cases. But that said, I mean, that's to put just an extreme case, and I don't think anybody will say, oh, the army has to really release this kid, this grandfather. Yeah. But what the action plan looks is at the moment of the signature of the action plan, which are the kids that are there, and definitely if they overage, if I could say, then they should also have the option to go out and have the appropriate reintegration. And then you talked about. Your question is like twofold, right? Because the other thing is, okay, once they leave, even if they are adults, is it going to be something different for them? And I mean, this is something very basic of child protection. It's what the responses cannot be one solution fits all, and every child is unique, and it needs case management that is going to be specific of that child. And I wouldn't say the opposite to someone who is 18 or 19 or 20 who has been recruited as a child and has been, for example, 5 or 6 years separated from the family, and there's going to be a very difficult process of reintegration with their families. So psychosocial support for those cases will be as specific as possible, and it should be as specific as a 15-year-old child who has been also recruited. It will be different solutions, but definitely has to be personalized assistance and case management. What we need is options in the field. And sometimes what I said, it was very nice theoretically. Now the reality is when you are with those kids, and especially when there's many kids, which could be the case, for example, in South Sudan, as I mentioned, of Myanmar with 109 kids that suddenly are released, is which are the options for them, and which are our resources to provide personalized assistance to those kids. I think that one of the things that there are different models, and one of the things that we have been exploring for years is also how we can look at social and communal reintegration of kids, how reinforced systems at community level. So, and I'm now talking more like an IRC person from an NGO, but how to ensure that those communities are equipped with the sufficient and appropriate tools to absorb, to reintegrate, to accept, to make those kids thrive.
Question back there.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, does the action plan include any plans for soldiers like not in the army, like like for DRC, for example, South Sudan, like there's a lot of like rebel forces using kids. Does it involve any plans to integrate those kids or things like that? That's not just like the National Army might be more open and willing to work with like what about all those rebel forces using kids? And we know mostly in African cases they use kids mostly for those kind of things.
Right. Well, the action plan is with one of the parties, right? So it can be action plans with the government, like these 7 action plans we have talked about, or it could be an action plan with an opposition group that is armed, like the MALF and in the Philippines.
Are any of these action plans been signed with one of these rebel forces?
Yeah, many of them. Yeah. Right now, actually, we have only one, I think, with the MALF, if I'm not mistaken. But there is engagement with several groups to sign action plans, and there is engagement with, because as a human, I mean, you belong to the humanitarian world. We engage with whoever in a neutral way to ensure protection of the children. So we won't take sides. Obviously, we don't say this government or this rebel group or this other rebel group should be in power. Obviously, that is completely, we are completely off of that debate. But if there are children in those troops, we want them out. We want those troops to respect the rights of the children, right? So their action plans have been signed and now are signed also with rebel groups. The other thing that you mentioned is DRC, and one of the things that the DRC government said is we have absorbed some rebel groups that had children in their troops. So by default, we are now having children and that has been a problem in DRC in particular. In September, the government said, now if we have other groups joining the National Army, we will screen them to be sure that they are not children. And that is a tremendous advancement, and I think it's also part of the success, and it's not in the list, but this is one of the things that, the impacts of the campaign that are not negligible. It's like there is a government that now is very aware of that. I think we are already more on the debate, right?
But if we're going to break into groups,
yeah.
we need to
These are the 6 big elements. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, if you want to, I have a couple of comments, but if you want to do that first.
Yeah.
Well, just because it was the question, and I basically this is very much this is basically the 6 points that will be included in every single action plan. We need a system of cooperation within the government and the UN system, because the action plan is signed between these 2 entities, the UN and the government. We need legal and policy reforms to prevent and respond to recruitment and use of children. So legally it is forbidden, basically, but also that it's actually implemented. So there is enforcement and accountability mechanisms in place. So if someone recruits or uses children, they have to answer for their deeds. These other elements are very important, particularly also for NGOs, which is the awareness raising and training systematic to all the not only the forces, our communities. So the communities know it is illegal. The communities know that there is a way to protect their kids and to protest if there is anyone trying to recruit them or use their kids. And training the communities, obviously. Awareness raising campaigns, you can consider that also part of the training, but also obviously armed forces. And we talked about the Romeo Dallaire as one example, right? We do that systematically. DPKO, the Department of Peacekeeping Operations, have very very specific child protection models and their trainings for troops, etc., etc. It needs to have a way of screening and releasing kids. So it's not only that there is this law, and no, the kids need to be released. We cannot have kids in the armies, and they have to be reintegrated. And kudos to NGOs, because after all these years of work on reintegration, I think we have the Paris Principles and commitments as a framework for reintegration of kids. There is a tremendous work done. There is a lot of knowledge on how to do this. There are very different models in very different contexts. Definitely reintegration in Afghanistan has nothing to do with reintegration in Congo, but we need a lot of inputs from all this knowledge and this incredible amount of knowledge to do that. And finally, we need access. So, and this is one of the big problems in many of the countries where nobody has access, right? And you know which ones. Okay.
If you want, we can stop the screen sharing. So you can see us.
We can see ourselves.
Some of the others.
Yeah, and probably there are questions also on
They haven't been here. They haven't been.
No?
There's been tweeting going on, but no questions.
How is tweeting? Interesting?
Yeah. If anyone have any questions, please feel free to ask. But I think you want to do some small group discussions also.
Yes,
right?
but there are some comments also there. And
So a couple of things. A great presentation, and I'm really glad to see how this has progressed. It's wonderful. Sorry, again, Michael from Search for Common Ground. A couple of things. I have two questions, I guess, and a comment. The first is, I would love to understand how militaries in particular have been responding to this. Recognizing that, in a place like Myanmar or South Sudan, you're essentially seeking to strip out a whole host of their manpower in the midst of active armed conflicts, and how they actually are handling that. For the landmines campaign, one of the things that emerged was the idea of replacing essentially the strategic tactical use of landmines with other kinds of military tools. So I'd just be interested to understand a little bit how the military side of the equation has been responding. The second is, have you guys thought or sought to address in any way state-sponsored paramilitary, state-sponsored organizations that are using violence? So, 969, how many kids are involved, but there are tons of boy monks, and surely, I'm sure that there have been plenty of minors who are in state-sponsored violence there. And then the third, I guess it's also a question / comment. We recognize very well that the progress that has been made in eliminating state military uses of children has been massive over the last 15 years. We haven't made, a thousandth of the progress working on non-state actors. I mean, we have these cases like MILF, but the MILF is in an active peace process and seeking to legitimize itself. And to the prevention side of the work for non-state actors, we need sort of this kind of comparable effort. And I'm wondering really, how do we leverage this exercise to essentially raise the cost and legally or militarily or in all kinds of ways on non-state actors who are recruiting children with abandon and without consequences. And we know that the ICC can serve as a deterrent. We have one case out of the many tens of thousands of child recruiters in the world from non-state actors. So I don't know that fear of prosecution is necessarily going to achieve that. So how do we leverage what you're doing here onto this non-state actor problem, which is where the crux of it is?
Yeah.
Those are my three kind of things.
Yeah, the long one is like a 4, right? Well, those are fantastic questions, and I also invite others to input on the answers. On the first one, what is the reaction of the military? I mean, the first thing I have to say, it's very difficult to make generalizations, and you are asking me which is the reaction of 8 different countries' army groups, which is they are just few million people. What are they? Just few million people reacting to the campaign. It's difficult to make generalizations, but my my first comment is I have high respect for the military, and the more I engage with them, the more I respect them in the way that they really want to have professional armies. And obviously you have good, it's being a manichaeism is not good, but you have people who are professional and people who are not professional in the humanitarian world, in the NGOs, in the UN, and in the military. So the reaction from the military has been very positive, as it has been from the political sphere. And they have said, well, the way this has been presented, because that's the way it is we have a campaign to professionalize armies. And there is you cannot have a professional armies where you have kids running around, which, has a lot of negative consequences for the military and for the military objectives themselves. And I say that quoting a little bit Romeo Dallaire and the handbook on why armies shouldn't have children. And that's coming from military doing assessments on their own military. So I have a high respect for that, and they have really embraced this very much. If there are individuals here or there that are not professional that are complaining for that, I have not heard that. It may be, but definitely it has been very positive, and they want to do it better. Second one was on
the state-sponsored paramilitaries.
Yes,
right.
The answer is yes. The report of the Secretary General looks at parties in conflict, whichever name or form are those parties, and that includes also state-sponsored armed groups. Yeah. That's it. And so what is important is that the monitoring system, the monitoring and reporting mechanism for the violations, and in particular for the violation of youth and recruitment, it is deployed and it is limited, I have to say also. So it depends on what is the quality of the monitoring in each country and the access for actors to report, whichever actors. The UN has to verify, but whichever actor to come and to bring specific reports on the use of children. So it could happen, and I'm sure it does, that that happens and is not reported, but it's not unwillingly. It is. We really want to have as many reports and the best reporting system and screening of the use and recruitment of children. And so you mentioned in Myanmar, that's definitely, there is a system there, and whichever group, if it is associated with the government, it will come and it will be reported directly to the Security Council, and it will be. And the other one you mentioned is, the last question is non-state actors.
So it's maybe more of an existential one for me.
Yeah, I know.
How do we leverage, because the real crux of this is, is non-state actor recruitment. How do we leverage this, so that this has an effect in that space? And I have lots to say.
And we mentioned in the beginning that is one of the biggest problems, right? I mean, this campaign, in a way, wants to be a tool of leverage.
Yeah.
How effective it's going to be? I mean, we don't have to be naive. We have to see in the coming months and couple of years. I think it's going to be deterrent or effective for some groups. For other groups, it's going to be. I mean, what do we call it? The continuous perpetrators. Someone can tweet. What's the number of the ones who have been listed for more than 5 years? The recurrent. Someone will tweet it. I'm sure. The ones who have been listed for more than 5 years. So there are some groups that I think it's going to be very, very difficult to engage. But we engage with many groups, and the UN is engaging with many armed groups, and definitely this is one of the big issues. I mean, the fact that we don't have action plans. We don't have an action plan with the government of Sudan, but we engage and we are doing our best to bring them into account and to stop the recruitment and use of children, etc. But we haven't forgotten. I mean, the campaign is directed to the government, but we are very aware that there is a huge, massive problem with non-state actors. And while this is happening, we are engaging with non-state actors, and we are doing awareness raising, and we are in many of the territories where they basically have full control and where they use and recruit children.
In the remaining time, we have 1 second. We We have about half an hour or so left before we start to close. And if you want to do some small group discussions, maybe this could be another good.
Should we do that? Because also I know that there are shy people like me around the table. So it would be interesting if we. Oh, I can do it myself now. Oh, look at that! like a big boy. I can do it myself.
You want to share this? Everyone watching?
Sure. Yeah. So I wanted to see if people are running away. Those are the very, very, very shy ones that don't want even to be in a small group to talk. So why don't we have? How many people we have here? 3 groups, maybe.
3 groups will be fine. We
3
have
groups?
2 rooms available.
Yeah.
So one
And so my question is very open. I mean, one of the biggest problems, and I mean, the successes of the campaign and the challenges of the campaign are going to imply mean that we have to do a lot of work and we have to mobilize resources. I mean, just the first budget that was calculated for responding to this was over $11 million, I think it was something like that. There is a lot of work that is done in the areas that we have mentioned before: cooperation, awareness raising, training, reintegration. But obviously, this is going to require more work in those areas. More mobilization of resources, which has been quite challenging, even if there are a lot of good words and a lot of political will and support. But that hasn't really been followed by financial support. And I'm going to be screaming here and there, like, we need money, because we do. And when I say we, right? We all. The campaign needs to have resources. And I'm really glad that NGOs also are really now interested in mobilizing resources. We are trying to mobilize resources, human and financial, to be able to respond to the needs of these kids in the field and help with the campaign in the 8 countries, the 7, I would say, now that Chad is not listed. So what I would like to do is to divide this in 3, and a very open question, which is, what can we do for the campaign to succeed, right? And that would be a little bit on what we as you, or what you think it's really needed, or how you could, I leave it a little bit open, right? Obviously, mobilization of resources and human resources is essential, and I would love if you can see yourselves how you can advocate within your own organizations, right? Because otherwise, it will be really embarrassing if all the governments want to do this, and then we are not able to respond. And they start really releasing kids, and we don't know where to put them. That would be really embarrassing. And but also, I think there are a lot of other issues there, on awareness raising, on training, on etc. etc. Yeah. And then you can have it. So I would say each country, each group, choose just one country maybe, or maybe 2, but no more than that, because then otherwise we just get a little bit lost. And what it would be interesting is to bring it more at the national level instead of more at the global level. But that's why I would suggest that you think more about 1 or 2 countries maximum. What about that? And then we will have something also interesting that I can take with me. of your ideas, not that I am looking into your wallets. No, your ideas.
So take 20 minutes in groups, maybe if you want to break it out like this.
Yeah.
And each one prepared to take notes and report back quickly.
Yes, yeah. We are not looking for a novel, just, quick ideas.
And for colleagues online, they also can just throw out ideas.
I would think that it would be great if the people online do the same thing, basically. If they have ideas that we could collect on what would be necessary, they have ideas for particular engagement on particular countries, on particular organizations, that would be absolutely terrific.
We already posted on Twitter and Hangouts, but maybe we can also say that they can give their input using the hashtags WINCAC and search events on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Hangouts.
And to start with, I think they can make pictures with their, what do you call that? Hashtag children not soldiers, and posted them. I think a lot of people are doing that, which is quite
good. Did you bring pins for everybody?
I didn't have many pins, but I had a couple of them. My friends from the SRG office said, like, oh, you have to wear, I'm wearing my pin. I want to see if we have one.
Okay, so shall we naturally self-divide or?
Oh, and then
Is there a group already over there?
I'll go and check.
Or are we just doing two?
so let's just tell them.
You guys want to join or you want to start another group?
So we start now and then we'll tell them to just send you.
My group is after you.
So, what's going to be?
We have put together all these, and I kept sending other people as well.
So that's it. We have one here, we have one here.
Okay.
I love this.
There's a room there that is all yours.
Let's tell them.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, yes,
Hi. So this is a message then for the people online. So we are going to do some work right now for 20 minutes. I'm sure you are not going to be patient enough to be there in 20 minutes. But what it will be great is if you send your ideas, we will collect them, right? And then we will. How we report back to them? We'll see how to do that.
We can use the hashtag WinCat and search event to give us your opinion, and then we'll post them all together on.
Okay, it will be posted on social media. Thank you very much. And then whatever is the result of the groups here, it will be also posted. Thank you very much for following us online, and hope you support the campaign. Thanks, everyone.